Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pro Camera Reviews, the weekly show by the staff of the Phoblographer. My name is Chris Gambit. I'm the editor-in-chief and the founder of the Phoblographer. I am joined by our reviews team. Here we have reviews editor Paul Ip.
Hey folks, how's it going? Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.
Oh yeah, that's a thing. I forgot to talk about that. Yeah, happy Mother's Day. And we also have Brett Day, our gear editor.
Hi everyone, and happy Mother's Day for sure.
Yeah. So we've got a very fun show for you. First off, this is sort of an experimental one because I am recording this on the Sigma FP that I just got in for review, and I'm being shot with a 14 to 24 millimeter f2.8 lens, and I'm at 24 millimeters. So it's pretty insane. I didn't think I'd be doing this, but it's a very functional test of the camera. We'll see how that works through the show. It's just usually an hour, so yeah. Either way, we also have a very interesting show for you guys because we are talking about a couple of really cool things. Paul did a bokeh test between the new Tamron 70 to 180 f2.8. It's a DIVC USD lens, right?
It's a it's a DI it's a Di3 VXD lens.
Okay, yes.
It's the new voice coil extreme torque drive.
So it talks to you at night?
Sure.
Yeah. It's one of the lenses meant for Sony FE mounts, and he put it up against the Sony 7200 f2.8 G Master IS.
OSS, which is their what they call their IS.
Yeah.
Optical stable something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Christine said something. Your talking and mouth are not in sync. Yeah, I figured that much. It's whatever. It's a test, so we'll see. Yeah. So we're doing the bokeh test, and then we're also doing an Apple versus PC test. Well, not test, but more of a discussion. Brett recently decided to make the leap over to an iMac. I'm going to congratulate him here. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I encourage you to also clap along with me because it makes Paul even angrier.
I really don't care either way. It's not my money.
So we're going to be talking a little bit about PC versus Mac for photographers. And we're also going to be talking about a couple of the hard truths of Instagram. There was recently a photographer who got into a little bit of trouble involving Mashable, and people have been talking about this for a little while, but I've seen a lot of parallels from like a decade ago, and I see a lot of similarities there. So we're going to be talking about how those relate more or less. But let's get into the gear. Paul, you want to start off?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just grab both lenses here. So just to show you guys, here's the Tamron, and here is the Sony f2.8 G Master. As you can see, there's obviously a size difference. Also, there's a difference in focal range. The Tamron covers 70 millimeters up to 180, whereas the Sony goes from 70 to 200. So there's a 20 millimeter focal length difference. I'm just going to take off the hoods for both of these so it's a little bit more manageable while I'm talking about the two lenses. So as you can see, there's about an inch and a half difference in terms of the overall length of the lens. Other than that, they're pretty similar in size. The really big difference is really the length. Okay. And obviously given the current conditions of the world, it's slightly more challenging for us to go out and test stuff. So, and we only just got this lens in earlier this week, so we haven't gotten to really put it through our, normal paces that we test all our lenses in. But so far, we're liking what we're seeing.
Hey, Paul, talk to us a little bit about the weight. We have a question about that in the audience.
So I don't have to, let me pull up the exact figure, but from holding it, it's definitely lighter than the 2.8 G Master. Obviously, you've got a larger front element here.
Hold them up again, side by side, please.
Yeah, right here. Can you guys see this?
Yeah. Okay. Those look like they would be significantly different.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Also, you don't have to deal with the collar on the Tamron. It's quite a bit lighter, and it feels quite well balanced when it's mounted to a full frame body. You know, I've been shooting with it on the A7R4. It's been pretty great. And let me just pull up the weight here. Dun, dun, dun. Wait. It is 810 grams. So under a kilo. It's fairly light for a telephoto of this class.
And the Sony's around 2 pounds, I believe, right?
It's a little more than 2 pounds, I think. Let me look at the weight for this guy.
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
And while you're at that, I mean, how's the build quality between each? Like, does the Tamron feel cheaper than the Sony, or?
Well, okay. So right off the bat, the exterior is the same kind of. We've talked about some of the other lenses before from Tamron. The exterior is definitely plasticky, but not in a bad way. It's extremely well weather sealed, just like all of the other lenses, and it's very solid. Everything feels great. It's obviously it's not internally focusing, so it extends when you're zooming all the way out to 180. But the zoom ring feels great. The manual focus ring feels great. What you don't get is you don't have some of the external controls, like you can't toggle it into manual mode, or you can't adjust the focal range, the AF range rather, because on the G Master you could have it on the full range or from infinity to 3 meters, depending on the subject that you're shooting with, right? And there's also no switch for you to turn off the stabilization. This lens isn't stabilized anyways, so which just makes sense for that toggle not to be there. So yeah, just to kind of give you the comparison there, and then pulling up the weight figure. So the G Master is 1.4. It's 1.48 kilograms, so quite a bit heavier.
Yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
also the Tamron. It's also less than half the price. It's like around 1,200, this is almost 2,400, 2,500 rather. So yeah, are you ready to put up the images, Chris?
Yeah, but before we do that, talk to us a little bit about the autofocus as well too.
So
What are you seeing?
autofocus, so far it's performing just as quick as all of the other lenses that we've tested from Tamron, and compared directly with the 70 to 200 2.8, it does. I don't feel that it's any slower in any way. One thing you do have to be mindful of is it doesn't have as close of a minimal focusing distance as some of the other Tamron lenses. The minimum focusing distance for this lens, it's almost up to a full meter. So just keep that in mind. But anything beyond that, it acquires focus very quickly.
Okay, well, let's do a screen share right now of this. And so, do you see it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, Paul, what cameras are you using to test this thing?
So I've only shot with this both lenses on the A7R4.
Okay. You're not using the 3 at all then, correct?
Not yet. I have it available, but it's
I gotcha.
I haven't shot with it.
Okay, so this first one is shot with the G Master, and then this is shot with the Tamron.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like that G Master bokeh is very creamy. The G Master has 11 aperture blades, but what is the Tamron have the same?
Tamron has 9, I think.
Okay, I
Yeah.
think you sort of see that here. Oh man, that's some swirly bokeh.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that around the edges. So this is G Master, and then this is Tamron, and Tamron has a little bit of swirl, but not really a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is G Master once again. Man, these
Yep.
colors are vivid. Actually, that's a great talking point. Paul, you gave me a call yesterday about this, and you were finding that the Tamron was around 200 degrees or so warmer.
Yeah. So here's an interesting thing that we discussed yesterday. So I'm one of the people that I tend to shoot with. I tend to shoot locking my white balance. So like daylight, I lock it to 5,500 Kelvin, or if I'm shooting in like tungsten light, I'll shoot at 3200 Kelvin, right? And even though I have the Kelvin locked, when I was inspecting the images, even in the back of the camera, the images from shot with the Tamron, they look quite a bit warmer already. And then I confirmed it when I put all the images into Capture One. So for the Sony, it was right around the 5500 Kelvin range. It just below it, in fact, around 5443. And then the Tamron was up in the 5700 range. So that's kind of interesting. And, it kind of gives the images a completely different look just right out of the box.
I'm going to bring those back up. I've seen the same thing before with their 85s, and I think Tamron's doing that because they think that the warmer look is something that portrait photographers will do. I think this is a perfect image to actually showcase it. So
absolutely. Yeah, just pay attention to the greens around the light.
Yeah. So can you guys see my mouse cursor as well?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So right here, you see a lot of blue, and then over here, and even in like the background over there too, like it's a lot warmer. And over here as well, too, this is Sony, and then this is Tamron. And then over here, this is Sony, and then that's Tamron. Not too much difference there. But you
go to the stop sign image later on, you could definitely tell.
All right, let me go to the stop sign image. So this is Sony. And then this is,
Wow.
Dude, one looks like fall, and the other one looks like...
Now I will add that the cloud conditions change slightly, but not like a different season.
Yeah, that's a significant difference between the two, right there.
So
Yeah,
they definitely bake something into the profile of the lens to have the images come out a little bit warmer.
Or I wonder if they're doing something on the coding or the optics to make it look a lot warmer. Like this is Sony. And this is Tamron. Like, there's a difference. So you're saying that, and obviously you haven't really started to shoot portraits yet, but
that's gonna be a little bit challenging, just given what we're dealing with at the moment with COVID-19.
Yeah, absolutely.
So trying to be very careful with how I'm arranging portrait tests.
Yeah. Now we were looking at the bokeh as well too. Like the Sony looks like it has better bokeh, but partially because
creamier. I mean, the whole thing with bokeh, it's always subjective, right? And that's always been one of the things that the G Master lenses are known for, is they all have, even the 2.8 lenses, they all have excellent creamy bokeh. For half the price though, the Tamron is not bad at all. You're paying $1,200 for this lens, whereas this is $2,500, depending on like current deals and what retailer you're buying from. It's also quite a bit lighter and smaller as well.
And they're both weather sealed, right?
They are. Granted, you could take the collar off, but this lens, it's gonna feel quite front heavy. And if you plan on shooting it on a tripod at all, you're gonna want to keep the tripod collar on.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but the Tamron you could easily handhold.
Paul, when you shot those images, did you try to keep the Sony at 180 or did you shoot at 200?
I actually tried keeping it at 180 for any of the instances where I'm shooting at the long end.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, here's the one thing, having had this conversation with one of the Tamron engineers, they suggested that the 20 millimeter isn't as significant as some people may feel it to be. And I'm so far I'm inclined to agree, because the long end, towards the long end, you're not going to notice as much when you're zooming all the way into 180 or 200. And also, given the fact that, like in my case, I'm shooting with A7R4, I've got 61 megapixels to work with. Right. If I really need a tighter frame that I can't achieve in camera, I could always crop and post.
I mean, I was just kind of thinking of the little extra bit of compression you're going to get from those 20 millimeters.
That's true. And also one other consideration that most people may not think of is for the wildlife shooters out there. You can No, the G Master is a lens that you could adapt using one of Sony's own teleconverters, the 1.4x or the 2x. I don't believe the Tamron is compatible with that teleconverter.
But Tamron, I think, has their own teleconverters, do they not?
I'm not sure that they have one that's specific for mirrorless.
Okay.
Yeah, and just that's a personal aside. I'm personally not a big fan of their rear lens caps. They just kind of fit weird compared to the Sony ones.
I've always felt the same way.
Yeah, it just you can see the difference, right? The Tamron one is almost like twice as thick as well, on the lens cap at least. So it's less compact. So, like on any of the Tamron lenses that I own, I actually switch out to the rear lens cap for the Sony ones. Like I just have, one of the things I do is I purchase extra lens caps because sometimes I lose them. So I'll just swap the Tamrons out for the default Sony ones. So just an aside to put that in there.
Now, in addition to that, too, I mean, the fact that the Tamron is so much smaller also means that it can be packed into your bag with a lot more ease.
Absolutely, especially if you've got the hood with you. Like, just look at these. Look at the two. Like, this guy is gigantic. I'm gonna show the light is a little more balanced like this. Like, you could definitely tell the difference with the lens hood attached. This thing is kind of, it's a bit of a bear to stuff into a camera bag. Whereas the Tamron is a lot more manageable. Like here's the Tamron next to my cup. This is like a regular, what is like a 16-ounce cup. It's not that much different in size. So you could like if you're trying to keep your kit as small as possible, the Tamron definitely has a size advantage.
I was gonna say that Tamron would probably be a good choice for Sony APS-C shooters.
You could, yeah. So that's going to be a 105 to 240 on APS-C. So that's a great range. Although they already have a very good option now with the, 70 to 350?
Yeah, 7350.
Yeah, so obviously this is 2.8 and that's 4.5 to 5.6.
Yep.
But it really depends on what you need. If you need range, maybe grab the 70 to 350, but this is no slouch either.
I think this is a really great option, but I don't know, like me personally, I feel like all these companies need to start innovating even more, like making f2 zooms or something like that. I mean, Canon did it. I thought it was great. Sony, Sigma, in APS-C, they did an f1.8 zoom. And I think we actually do need faster zooms. Like, I understand what you're saying about the need for 20 millimeters. Like, that difference might not necessarily always be there and be needed. Mm-hmm. But, more bokeh and more light gathering abilities, I fear, are also always, like, in need.
Yeah, no, I'm inclined to agree. Like, personally, I'm the type of photographer that I will suffer the extra weight and size just to get the best quality that I can. You know me, like like the kit that I have sometimes, like I would gladly carry an extra like 5-10 pounds if I needed to, if I know that the trade-off is I'm going to get the best possible quality. But I think for most photographers that, especially like high-end hobbyists or semi-pros, this guy will definitely do the trick for a lot of people. And at the price point that this thing is coming in at, it's kind of a no-brainer. If you don't already have, like a telephoto zoom of like from the 70 to 200 or 70 to 180 range, it's a hard bargain like against this guy.
I was actually considering buying it myself once I get some money or something.
Yeah, it's like, it's challenging, right? Because to me, like, I love this, but then I also like I love having these controls on the side of the lens, because Brett, like I know you shoot quite a bit of wildlife sometimes, and having that focus range toggle, sometimes it's such a huge difference. Because if you know all of your subjects on the long end, and you don't need like you don't like it makes a huge difference to cut off the close end of the focusing range, so that
Yeah.
your lens is only, like, I don't want to say focus too many times, but like it's only focusing on the long end.
It can be the difference between getting and missing the shot in a split second.
Absolutely, yeah. Because like you're basically telling it completely ignore everything from like within 3 meters and 1 meter, and like that's half the time that the lens is going to spend hunting. So it could be huge.
Yeah, but in addition to that too, I mean, I don't know how many times I've really done that with a 70 to 200 millimeter lens. I've done that for like events and stuff like that. But even so, like you're still in pretty close range. If it were something longer, like a 100 to 400, I think that would make a lot more sense.
Oh, that would absolutely be necessary.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this, Paul. Guys, tune in for our upcoming review. Paul is working on that. He should have it done probably by the end of the month or middle of next month, and then we'll schedule up soon after that. If anyone's interested, please let us know. We'll work on actually showing off the comparison bokeh images too.
Yeah, we could put something out before for reviews out if you guys are interested in just seeing a bokeh comparison.
Yeah. All right, let's get Paul a little salty here. Brett, what do you say?
I say it's time, brother.
Here's the thing. You guys forget that I also owned a MacBook for a long time.
Uh-huh. Please continue to tell us of why you own this MacBook and not a full iMac.
Because I don't need a full iMac.
So the reason why we're talking about this is compound, actually. Last week, Apple announced their new MacBook Pro 13-inch, which, in my opinion, is actually a pretty good buy. And we had a lot of readers also saying the same things. But we had a lot of readers also saying, like, oh, no, this isn't such a great buy. And, no, you can get this. And there were a lot of weird comments and weird choices, I feel, by Apple with, standard out of the box, giving like an 8th generation processor versus having like a newer one. But at the same time, it was also pretty fascinating to me because Brett sold his PC and went out and got a new iMac. So, Brett, what brought you to the cult of Steve Jobs?
Well, it's actually, I used to use Mac a long time ago. I switched between Mac and PC a lot. Last time I switched to PC, it was as a result of my Mac dying. And as you know, Paul and I knew we also game a lot as well. And I was looking to consolidate gaming and working systems into one, which is why I switched back to PC. But I realized I didn't game as much on my PC as I thought I was going to. And I just used it for photo editing. And I actually always used to find that Mac would be better just for photo editing. And that's one of the reasons why I switched back to Mac now is really just so I can use it as a workhorse for my photo editing.
Just pause right there. Paul, did you hear that? He said it's superior in the choice for photo editing. I just want you to know that he said that. And that's the same thing that I've been thinking for a while.
I mean, for me, when I look at the specs of the PC I built and I just sold, my PC was probably almost twice as powerful as the iMac I just purchased. But I think it's easier for, and maybe Paul agrees or disagrees, I don't know. I think it's easier for software companies to optimize their software for Mac a little bit easier than PC, just because the specs are more constant and not all over the place. I'm finding right now that Lightroom and Capture One run as well, or maybe even a little bit better than they did on my PC that was twice as powerful.
Now, Brett, just to interject a bit, your daily driver camera is an Olympus, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what percentage of the images that you produce are shot with an Olympus versus the other gear that you're testing?
They're almost all Olympus images.
Okay. So therein lies one of the point that I was kind of thinking of when you were mentioning about editing speeds. While I agree that, when you're optimizing hardware, it's very easy to optimize when you're dealing with a limited subset of hardware. That's always been a debate with, well, going kind of back to the gaming thing we're talking about. Like that's kind of why it's easier, quote unquote, for people to develop for consoles versus PC, because you're dealing with just a smaller subset of hardware versus all of the possible hardware combination in the world. Same can be said for Mac versus PC. Now, while there's some truth to what you're saying, I challenge you to do a comparison between your Mac and a comparably equipped PC. If you're editing like files produced from like a GFX 100 or A7R4.
While you say that, I did. I still have GFX 100 files, and I still have HASI files from the X1D2.
Oh,
and
man.
It was still fine. Honestly, it ran just fine. I had no hiccups. I edited, brushed, whatever. Anything I thought it could slow down the process, I threw at it, and it was still just fine.
Nice, excellent.
Yeah. I was impressed.
In addition to that, I feel also for photographer services like AirDrop are really, really invaluable.
Yeah, AirDrop is something I used to use all the time, and I'm sure I'll get back to that. For me to be able to jump onto my computer, edit, AirDrop my images to an iPad, and then take my iPad to a client to be able to show them their proofs is invaluable. And then also another feature that's coming to the iMacs now is Sidecar, which I'm able to wirelessly attach my iPad to my iMac, and I can use my iPad as a Wacom editing tablet with the Apple Pencil.
Nice.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
Which iPad do you have?
I just have a regular iPad, not an Air, not a Pro. It's just a regular iPad.
And you can do that with, you're talking about Generation 1?
Yeah, well, it's the newest iPad, but it's just the base iPad.
Yeah, that's the 7th gen.
7th gen. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I have the Air 2, and I was like, I wonder if I could do that with the Air 2.
Yep, it works just fine.
Oh, I'm so glad I turned this thing back on and started charging it again. It had a problem with charging.
How's it been living with that dongle life, Brett?
I don't need any dongles, man. I'm good.
Yeah, like Kevin, one of my friends and also a former staffer, built a PC for me, but like I feel like I need more dongles with the PC than I do with my Mac.
How so? Well, I mean, what are you using your PC for though?
Gaming.
Okay, so why do you even need a dongle then?
I will say that I used to dongle on my custom-built PC because I needed an SD card slot. The case I purchased didn't have an SD card slot, so I had to use an external reader.
Yeah, I was gonna say stuff like that.
Oh no, I was specifically talking about laptops.
Oh, for laptops?
Yeah.
You're basically
for any desktop. You're probably. I mean, the iMac has that one SD card slot in the back, which is you kind of have to fish for it. But yeah, I was mainly referring to laptops.
That's where I feel you're on more even ground. Apple made stupid decisions with taking out a lot of those ports. Yeah.
That's one of the things where I feel like some of the more high-end laptops cater towards creatives or kind of more like better suited for what we do than what Apple is kind of creating their laptops for. Like for example, like earlier this year, we released our Razer Blade 15
Studio.
Yeah, Studio Edition review, and you've used that laptop as well. While I was the one that handled most of the review, that thing will run circles around any Mac that's currently available. That thing is ridiculous. Granted, it's $3,500, but you get what you pay for in terms of performance.
But then when you look at the new Mac that just came out and the way that we spec'd it in the article, that's $3,300 as well.
Right.
So when it comes to laptops, PCs kill Macs for sure. Definitely, I completely agree.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing. Like their desktops have always actually offered pretty good value. It's the thing is most creatives tend to use a MacBook because they're always on the go, like we are certainly. Well, not right now, obviously, but we tend to be on the go quite a bit, and a laptop is essential to our workflow.
Mm-hmm.
And what you could get on the PC market, it's just so far like way superior than what Apple is providing for creatives.
You know,
Even marketing everything for creatives, you know.
we're talking about like specs there, but honestly, when it comes to actual performance, a lot of problems that I see with PC users is sometimes when it comes to editing their images, like sometimes because they're using different monitors, nothing will ever be consistent, and most people don't really calibrate their monitors. Even if you don't calibrate an iMac or an Apple computer or an iPad or something like that, they're all usually very consistent. So one image edited on my iMac, let's say I didn't calibrate the screen at all, or I set it to, the Apple iMac display profile. If I had, if this same computer went to your house, Paul, it would look the exact same. But I mean, you don't really get that with a PC, and you don't always get that with an external monitor.
There's some caveats to what you're saying. I will agree that Apple does a great job out of the box. They do a great job standardizing all the products. I think the onus is on the user, and when you're talking about color calibration, if you're buying the same class of desktops that are catered to creators, that like the all-in-one style desktop that when iMac is considered to be.
You mean like a Surface Studio, you mean?
Yeah,
then?
Surface Studio, or kind of like the Lenovo that we reviewed as well. All of like that class of all-in-one desktops that are created for creatives, they all come out of the box with they're all color calibrated, and there's color calibration reports in the box when you open it. The problem is you have people that basically they spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 on a computer, and then they buy like $100 monitor. The logic there is not sound. It's kind of like people that drive a race car and then they put a piece of crap rim on the car, or like they buy like cheap tires for the car. Doesn't make sense, but people do it, not realizing that that's critical to what we do as photographers. When you're dealing with laptops, though, that's completely different. Like the Razer and some of the other creative centric laptops, they all come calibrated.
Right.
Also, like people forget that calibration out of the box is great, but that's something you have to do every month throughout the time, like the life of your device. It's not just you get something that's, hey, this is calibrated and you're good to go. Like it will change over time, so it's the onus is on you to maintain the calibration of your device.
I honestly know maybe a handful of creatives beside us that actually really sit there and calibrate their machines often, though. Like most people I know don't. And
that's what it's like. What you should do and what people actually do. I can't control what other people do. It's kind of like doctors tell you should, like do a lot of things, but most people don't do them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But that's also where I think it's a lot better for creatives to really go for the all-in-one, sort of like what you're saying, rather than just like building their own like tower and then getting like this other monitor and stuff like that. Like,
well, yeah, that's like you have educated consumers, and then you have people that just don't want to think and just buy whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I feel like we could probably have this conversation going on for a really long time, but I also tend to agree with you guys. Like with laptops, PCs do actually do a better jobs, but for desktops, I don't really see myself leaving Apple anytime soon.
Yeah, it's hard, right? Because I mean, even like I've got my iPhone right here. It's challenging because one of the things that Apple does very, very well is they do a great job integrating their entire product stack so that you're married to that product stack, because there's such tight-knit integration between the services, right? Like, iMessage, AirDrop, stuff like that. They are excellent services for sure. But, for someone that, like, I like to upgrade stuff, and I don't ever want to feel like, oh, I want more memory in my machine, but you can't because it's soldered to the motherboard. Well, crap, now I got to go drop another $4,000 if I want a top of the line device. Like, Florio, we both know him. Like, how much money has he dropped on machines that he has to upgrade because he can't just do the upgrade himself.
I mean, yeah, but he only has to do that like once every 6 or 5 years.
Okay, but then someone like me, I could upgrade every year if I wanted to. Like I can build a machine that will cost me X amount of dollars, and then I could just upgrade the one component that needs to be upgraded.
But he doesn't really need to. That's the thing. He can really just like sit there, hunker down, do all his 3D motion graphics all the time, have everything render off of his server farm. If anything, he mostly upgrades like hard drives more than anything else because he needs to, because he's editing that much video.
Right, which is also challenging to do too on Macs.
Yeah, but I mean, there was a while where he actually went to PC just because everything Apple was doing was really annoying the hell out of him. And then he came back to Mac, and all he had left was like this Razer Edge. No, I forgot which laptop he had, but he had a Razer gaming laptop.
Oh, Razer Blade.
I think, I don't know, like it was like 6 years ago or something like that. So I'm not even sure.
That's the biggest thing. If you just want to pick up a machine that you don't have to think about, get a Mac. You know, like I've told people
that's what he ended up doing. Yeah,
I've told people to buy Macs before, just because like these are people that keep like bugging me about, like asking me about all sorts of different like computer questions. Like I have a background in tech, so a lot of people come to me for like recommendations, and it's like, just get a Mac. Like that way, it's just stop bugging me, you know. But you're paying a premium for it, and also you need to realize that there are a lot of restrictions when you're using a Mac. But for like power users like Brett and I mean, obviously Brett wants like in this case the convenience won out for you because you like iMessage and stuff. But you know, like you also need to realize that there are trade-offs that come with that decision.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's always going to be a trade-off, and there's no right or wrong. It's just whatever fits your personal preference.
Yeah. Another thing too, it's you also need to be okay with paying a significant premium for something that would cost quite a bit less if you just purchased it and upgrade it yourself. Like anytime you want to do a memory upgrade on a Mac, well, if you can even upgrade it,
I feel like
upgrade
that.
The iMac.
Yeah, I feel like that also comes with the ability to do things like call Apple up and just talk to a genius on the phone with no problems from your apartment. Whereas with like a Lenovo computer, you won't necessarily get that same level of service.
I mean, I wouldn't know. I don't need to call anyone for that stuff. So like,
right. But I've needed to do that. Like when I bought my iMac last year after the one that I bought one from Florio. You know, when I was on the phone with them, they were like, well, what year is it from? And I'm like, oh, like 5 years ago. They're like, yeah, it's about time to upgrade it. I wouldn't have, if I were to do that otherwise, I'd probably have to do that from like Best Buy or something like that. And I don't want to deal with Geek Squad.
I mean, I don't personally, I don't want to deal with any of those people, but it depends. Like, yeah, you know, it's you're dealing with CSRs either way. And like I mean, some CSRs are better than others. I think that's changed though quite a bit. Like the thing that you're describing, that was definitely true maybe a decade ago, but we're at the point where overall there's a lot more computer literacy just due to how everyone is using computers these days. So in general, most consumers are more knowledgeable. So they're asking better questions, and they're not getting taken for a ride like they would have, you know, like a decade ago. But, you know, yes, there's definitely that benefit of just being able to walk into a store and talking to someone if you're living in, you know, like for us, we live in New York, right? So we could just pop into the store and talk to someone at the Genius Bar or Geek Squad, or you know, at the Service Center and a Microsoft store, either one of those. But I mean, that's a little bit more challenging for someone like Brett, because like you probably have to go quite a bit of distance to go to an Apple store or whatever, like PC manufacturer, their own branded stores, right?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, so there's definitely benefits, but it's not like a universally applicable thing. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, what do you think, Brett?
I say get whatever makes you happy and just get working. I mean, that's
Yeah.
always going to come down to it at the end of the day.
Right, absolutely. And I tell people, like, what does your workflow entail? Like, because my workflow is very different than your workflow. Like, everyone has their preferred way to work.
Right,
And
absolutely.
my workflow happens to be like, oh, using a PC is best for me because it allows me. It's kind of like people are like, oh, what car should you buy? Do you drive a stick? Do you drive auto? It's for most people, they're like, I just want a car that goes from A to B.
Mm-hmm.
But some people they like to they like to supercharge their engines, or they like to they like to customize everything about their car. It's kind of the same argument. It's or do you just need something that works, or are you capable of doing all that wrench work yourself and getting every last bit of performance out of your equipment? It's apples and oranges. There's no right and there's no wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're looking objectively, if you're a consumer that knows how to get the most out of your equipment and you're completely okay with putting the wrench time in, get a PC. Because it's going to be cheaper and you get more performance out of it. For the same amount of dollars, you're getting more on a PC. But if you just want something that works,
Shoot film.
a Mac. No, absolutely not, because then you're going to screw everything up. Yeah. Unless you're just shooting on like a full auto camera or something.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect solution right now.
Yeah, but if you want something that just works and you're okay with paying a premium for it, Mac's probably more your bag.
Yeah. All right, we are running a little low on time, so let's go to our last topic, which was basically about Instagram. So this was due to an article that Dan Jin wrote a little while ago. It was about basically there was this photographer who was asked to have their images used for an article, and then she said no. Mashable was offering them only $50. So what they did was they went and on Instagram and they used it that way by embedding it into the article, and turned into like a giant mess. And ever since then, a lot of photographers have been asking whether or not it's actually worth it for them to be doing that while well, basically what I mean is whether it's worth it for photographers to be putting their images on Instagram and how they can prevent this from happening. Now, I saw this happen pretty much a decade ago when Facebook Pages came out. I don't know if you guys remember that, but when Facebook Pages came out, people were stealing images. Photographers were like, oh, well, I have this problem. I don't want to get my images stolen. And then there were photographers that were still making money, and they were like, well, I see it as like an investment in my own business. So from that, a lot of ideas came out where it was like, well, you probably shouldn't upload like super high res images on the web to begin with, which, all of us do, I'm pretty sure, but I'll let you guys chime in a second. But also, I feel like, I used to hear this when I worked at B&H Photo. I used to do a lot of events there, and there were a lot of people that were always like, oh, well, how do I prevent people from stealing my images? And the truth is that this might sound a little bit harsh, but you have to ensure that you're creating images that people want to steal to begin with. And that's what I was told by a couple of people there over at B&H. And yeah, those are my two cents. But Brett, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that's been going on for a while. And in terms of thinking about uploading lower res images, I think Facebook and Instagram limit the resolution of the images that get uploaded anyway. Instagram's what, 1080, I think?
It will down-res to 1080, and then Facebook will down-res any images that are larger to 2048 on the long edge.
Right. So, I mean, for me personally, when I upload, I'm not really too concerned about someone stealing an image and taking it and trying to blow it up and get a massive print of it, because that lower resolution and the compression that those services put on the images is going to stop that. And then what I would hope eventually what would happen is if someone wanted that image, they would come to me and ask for it. So that's one of the reasons why I post images as I do on Facebook and Instagram. And, you know, you could also do things like watermarks as well to try and prevent theft. But, you know, I kind of stopped doing that just because the availability of mobile applications like Lightroom and Photoshop and all these other editing apps where people can clone out watermarks anymore from online images is ridiculous. So I kind of stopped doing watermarks as well. So it's kind of one of those things you know what you're getting into when you sign up for these apps and these services, and it's something you've kind of got to expect, and it sucks.
Yeah, but in addition to that too, I also feel like photographers shouldn't necessarily be putting all their eggs into one basket with Instagram. They should be looking at other platforms too. Like, as a business person, like, that's just, you know, standard. Like,
right.
We don't put all our eggs into the Facebook basket or the Instagram basket. You know, we get traffic from Google and we get traffic from Flipboard and all these other referral services. So I feel like photographers, the ones that are putting everything into Instagram aren't really doing the business right. Paul, what do you think about that statement?
I definitely agree. This is coming from someone that has taken an extended break from Instagram. The last time I shared some new work on Instagram was February of last year. This was a conscious decision that I made just because at the time I felt like Instagram wasn't engaging or inspiring me in any way. So I made the decision to kind of take a break from the platform. But, you know, I want to go back a little bit about kind of diversifying or your outlets, so to speak. I think that's one of the things that a lot of creatives kind of don't understand. Coming from a business background, like, one of the things that's super important is always you need to diversify, and that applies to all things in life. You know, you need to diversify your income streams, and you need to diversify the way in which you kind of get your work out there to be seen. Be either, you know, if you're lucky and you can afford it, maybe have an agent, or, you know, have a newsletter, have a website, have Instagram, have Facebook, or whatever other platform you want, right? But ultimately, you're in control of your images. So never feel so compelled that you need to share your work out there. You know, like, just make sure that if you are sharing something, you've copyrighted it with the Copyright Office. And also, like, you also need to come to terms with the fact that if people want to willingly steal your work, it's not hard to do. If you have the know-how, it's very easy to, like, even if on a website where, like, you can't right click, you could steal the images very easily if you know what you're doing. Now, the people that, you know, but, you know, these are people that have little to no regard for copyright. The people that actually respect that and like you, like your work, and like you as a creative, you know, I personally find that those people will seek you out and they'll ask you, oh, is this image, like, can I purchase a print of this, or can I license this image for a project that I'm using, or whatever use case it may be. So, but, you know, there will always be the bad actors that will just completely willfully ignore your copyright and just steal your images anyways. And that's okay. If you've done the necessary steps that you should be doing as a photographer, if you're a working pro, you should be, you know, copywriting your images anyways. Like, you know what? Go ahead and steal my images, because now that you have stolen my images, I can now take action against you, and there will be the infringing party is now liable for damages. So it comes down to us being knowledgeable in our field. So, you know, it's just, we have to be very careful. And even if you are sharing your images, like, if you're sharing client work that you obviously have the right to share, you know, you're not sharing it the moment you're creating the work, right? You know, like, let's say you shot a campaign and then you want to share it on social media, you share it after it's already been published. Like, you know, like, don't share anything that you don't want the world to see and have it risk being stolen if it's obviously not yet ready to be shared. Just, I think there's, like, as photographers, we need to be more careful about that and not feel the need to just put all of our work out there just because, oh, we need it for the double clicks, we need it for the likes.
I agree with you 100%. But in the case of what happened to this photographer, like, I think it's also on part of the publication. And I mean, we run a publication. We've been very ethical about photo
Yeah.
use from the beginning. Like,
Mhm.
I instill that in every single one of our writers. It's in our guidelines. Like, everyone purposely goes through a 3-month trial process just so they can understand this. But I mean, in this case, you know, Mashable, they went to the photographer. They were like, hey, can we have this? Can we license this image? We'll give you $50. And the photographer was like, no, I'm not okay with that.
Mhm.
You're going to have to give us this. So then Mashable went around and said, oh, you know what? We'll just take the embed code from Instagram and we'll put it into our article.
Yeah, this
That way.
is a legal versus ethical
Yeah.
kind of discussion. Legally,
They're okay.
Mashable,
They're actually within their rights.
legally, Mashable did nothing wrong. They they did what they were supposed to. They approached the photographer, and it was well within the photographer's right to turn that down because I mean, obviously, $50 for the right to use an image from a huge publication like Mashable, that's a slap in the face. That's ridiculous, you know. And I completely applaud the photographer's decision not to go through with it. However, it goes back to being educated and knowledgeable in what we do. When you sign up for a service like Instagram or Facebook, like these are free services and they're free for a reason because you are the product. So you need to I know most people don't, but it really you should really read all the fine print before you put stuff out on these platforms. A lot of these platforms, they own the images or they own the right to republish and share your images. And that's where the legal kind of loophole is, where Mashable was able to quote unquote get one over on this photographer because they now approach a rights holder, which in this case is Instagram, because this work has been shared on Instagram's platform. So now the copyright has been transferred to Instagram. So they legally went to the rights holder, in this case Instagram, and Instagram said yes, go ahead and use it. Ethically, it's kind of messed up because you're circumventing the original creator of the work, but legally it's well within Mashable's rights to do what they did. I'm not condoning that they did that. I think it's kind of scummy that they did it, in fact, but legally there's no wrongdoing here, and in a court of law it's going to be seen that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's see, that's where I'm like on both sides of the fence here because obviously I run a publication, but
Yep.
we're still very ethical about that kind of stuff. And usually when we pull images from an Instagram feed, it's because we're featuring the photographer in like a roundup to specifically say something like, oh yeah, this is your work, we want to praise you in this list of photographers. And in some cases and in some situations, there are ethical circles that say that if you want to pay for an image, then you can actually argue the fact that, hey, actually, no, you're praising this photographer. The article is about them. Technically, it's like you're paying for information. And in journalism, it's unethical for you to pay for information. But if you just want to use the image to illustrate a point in a larger article, then that is something that's much different. And you should then ask for permission from the photographer to actually, license the image. Yeah, it's such a tough one right there. And I think it obviously depends on the situation.
Yeah.
And it also just means that the photographers need to be smarter about the types of content they're putting online. Don't put everything online the same way that we've been doing for a decade. But also publications, I feel, need to find a way to instill better ethics into their journalists, because they're creatives too. Journalists are creatives in the same way that photographers are creatives, especially in the freelance world. And you're both fighting for the same kind of rights, and you really shouldn't be trying to screw each other over, so to speak.
No, I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the most important point is as photographers, as image creators, I think a lot of the newer guard, they're they're so focused on this currency of being seen, of gaining traction and popularity, that they forget that you need to think in terms of dollars and cents. Like
all these
likes
years.
and yeah,
Go ahead.
I
was gonna say, all these years of us thinking along the lines of we don't want to just work for exposure. It doesn't do anything for us. We've done we're going the complete opposite way.
Yeah, because a lot of that is kind of this newer wave of photographers. They don't understand that there's a diminishing return.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not saying don't work for free. There are certain instances where working for exposure will definitely benefit you. But this should always be a case, like very limited case by case basis. In general, as an image maker, you should never be working for free and just signing your rights away wholesale. You see this in other areas as well in terms of social media, where if you let's say look at the vessel, for example, that where for some when that monstrosity first opened in New York, and there was a blanket statement where if you went to the vessel, which is an outdoor building / art piece, if you will, because in order to enter, you have to basically get tickets through the real estate developer. So when getting part of the fine print in getting the ticket to enter the vessel is that any image and video created on the premises is owned by the property owner. And obviously, and with all the rights in the world, people photographers got up in arms because that's a blatant rights grab, and they've since scaled that back, and they've taken that clause out of the admissions when you sign up for tickets to enter this place. But even then, this stigma will forever follow the vessel, because you talk about it now, any photographer that knew about what happened was, oh, don't take any photos there because they're going to steal your images. And you see this also with people if you use certain hashtags, companies will use that hashtag, and if you go on their website, they'll have a policy where, oh, if you tag us using a certain hashtag, that equates to you giving that company I can't even say
irrevocable rights.
Thank you. Yeah, irrevocable rights.
No, it does not.
Yeah, to use images for whatever purpose they want. I'm like, no, that is not how that works. And we're starting to see some pushback against that, and rightly so. But all of this is just to say that the onus is on us to be educated and to pay attention to what we're doing and realize that our work has value, and you should never give it away willy-nilly.
Yeah, but we also have to stand together and say that, rather than having half of the photographers being like, "Oh no, you shouldn't do that," and then other people
which
being
is why it comes down to people working pros to sort of pass that and instill that on the next generation of photographers. For the people that may not know better, they think that, oh, if I do enough work for exposure, eventually, I'll be successful. I'm like, no, and let me tell you why that's wrong. For a long time, there's kind of been this all the trade secrets have been kind of kept under lock and key. And I think that we really need to kind of open up and have discussions about the entire industry, and ultimately it benefits, all of us, because it's the people that don't know that are kind of screwing over the people that do know, because companies are taking advantage of the fact that most people don't know better, and they know they can get one over and get whatever they need for free.
It's so interesting you're saying this, because I'm listening to you and I'm also hearing it echo sort of into the way of just actually creating images. A lot of people think that, oh, I can take an image and then, just do whatever amount of photoshopping I want to. And only now they're realizing that, oh, you actually have to be a good photographer, and you have to have ethics and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I feel like they're like all of that is going hand in hand overall throughout the industry, and I think part of it is because of the fact that there were just so many new photographers that came up in the past like 5-7 years or so.
Yeah, that's definitely been a huge influx. It's good and bad. I mean, it's good to always have a next generation to carry on the torch, you know, but there needs to be some way to make sure that what they're doing is sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely.
There needs to be some, because it's not like there's a formal education you can get as a photographer. Like you don't go to photographer college and get a photographer degree. Like most photographers, I'll argue, have very little, very limited business acumen, which is what ultimately causes them to get into trouble in the first place, because they don't know how to effectively run businesses. And yes, we are creatives first and foremost, but if you're doing it, if you're a creative and you're doing it as your business, you know, then you need to think of yourself first and foremost as a business and treat everything as such.
It's very interesting you're saying that, because I know sometimes when I do talks, I'll ask people like, how many of you are pros? And you'll get so many people raising your hand. And I'm like, But of
Yeah,
those
then you
pros,
ask them, how many of you actually have invoice clients? And then all those hands go down.
more than that, it's how many of you actually make taxable income from your photography services. And like, you can make part of that income, and in that case then you're semi-professional. But if most of your income comes from the photo space, then like you're obviously a professional photographer. Yeah. Brett, any final thoughts?
Just protect yourself out there, guys, and stay away from places like Unsplash.
Oh jeez.
Yeah.
I can't believe they're partnering with the UN right now.
Right?
Well, that just goes to show there's so much misinformation out there. You know, people don't know, and they think that it's just like, oh, it's this great thing where everybody can get things for free. There's no such thing as free. There's a cost to everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, look deeper, look beneath the surface, ask questions. Like if something is free, that immediately should raise a lot of questions for you. Like, why is it free? Just remember, if something is free, you're probably the product.
Yeah, totally. All right, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Everyone that is in the room, we will unmute you after we're done with the show and kill the recording. Paul, thanks a lot. Brett, thanks a lot. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, killing the recording.